Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to the channel where we do deep dives into the Star Wars characters and Star Wars lore. Today we're taking an in-depth look at Shin Hati, one of the most enigmatic characters in the Ahsoka series. Cold, calculated, and merciless on the surface, she's a powerful force, yet beneath her stoic exterior there are cracks in her confidence. Throughout the series, we see Shin begin to question her place in the grand scheme of Grand Admiral Thrawn, Morgan Elsbeth, and even her own master, Baylan Skoll. In this video, I'll explore not only her motivations, but my theory that Shin Hati will eventually switch sides after realizing she has been abandoned by those she served so faithfully. We'll also take a deep dive into the dynamic between her and Baylan Skoll, analyzing key scenes that show her growing doubts about her training. Finally, I'll explore what it means for Star Wars to have the Dark Force users not bound to the strict codes of the Jedi or the Sith, and how Shin Hati embodies the unique path. But before I go on, please just don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment down below as to what you think about Shin Hati or anything in the Ahsoka Tano series. Okay, let's start by focusing on how Shin Hati is portrayed throughout Ahsoka. From the first moment she's introduced, it's clear that she's a character who thrives on control. Her precision in combat, her laser focus on completing missions, and her lack of emotional attachment make her a truly dangerous opponent. In fact, her ruthless efficiency in battle is reminiscent of some of Star Wars' most fearsome figures, such as Asajj Ventress or the Inquisitors. We witness her carry out brutal tasks, often without hesitation. She has no qualms about eliminating obstacles in her path, which raises a significant question. What drives her? Is it loyalty to Baylan, a desire for power, or something else entirely? One scene that perfectly captures her cold nature occurs during the mission to capture Sabine Wren. In this encounter, Shin moves with an almost predatory intensity. There's a moment where she almost gives Sabine the option to surrender, but even in that, there's no real compassion. It's an offer dripping with contempt, as if Shin knows Sabine Wren is already beaten, and this is just a formality. Yet beneath that facade, something is stirring. There's a moment of pause, almost as if Shin is questioning her actions. Is this the path she truly wants to follow? Is this what her training has prepared her for? These fleeting moments of hesitation are key to understanding the internal conflict brewing within her. This brings us to her relationship with Baylan Skoll. One of the most intriguing aspects of Shin's character is her unwavering loyalty to Baylan. Throughout the series, she follows his orders without question, at least on the surface. But there's an undercurrent of doubt, a curiosity that slowly emerges as the series progresses. Star Wars has always been about the ambiguity in its villains. Darth Vader. From a certain point of view, one could understand why Darth Vader was the way he was. A little extreme, yes, but we could understand his motivations. Count Dooku and General Grievous, the same thing. Darth Maul, in the end, we finally understood what was going on with that guy. But between Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll, we see this most clearly in their quieter moments together. There's a key scene where Shin, in her typically reserved manner, subtly asks questions Baylan about her training. She asks, "Is this what you envisioned for me, for us?" Baylan, ever the philosopher, responds in a cryptic manner, evoking ideas of destiny and power beyond their immediate understanding. This exchange reveals a lot about Shin Hati. She's not simply a mindless follower, she's introspective, beginning to question the path she's been placed on. Her curiosity about what lies beyond the missions, beyond the immediate goals of Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth, is evident. This questioning is critical, as it sets the stage for her eventual shift in allegiance. The seeds of doubt have been planted, although she still has the sense of duty and honor to her teachings. A pivotal moment that exemplifies this doubt occurs during a scene where Baylan speaks about the greater power that calls to him. Shin, observing him closely, asks why they pursue this path. Baylan's response is vague, filled with cryptic musings about destiny and how the Jedi failed because they were too rigid in their beliefs. Baylan's vision of the future is murky, and while he's content to chase after the elusive power, Shin is not. In this scene, Shin's face betrays her emotions more than ever before. She's confused, perhaps even frustrated. This is the first time we see a crack in her previously unwavering loyalty. For someone so disciplined, the uncertainty is unsettling. This moment marks the beginning of her internal struggle. Should she continue down this path with Baylan, or is there another way? Now let's get into my theory a little bit. I believe Shin Hati will eventually switch sides, not out of redemption or a sudden change of heart, but because of abandonment. Let's break it down. First, let's talk about Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth. These two are clearly playing a much larger game, and Shin is nothing more than a tool in their arsenal. Thrawn, with his strategic brilliance, knows exactly how to use people to achieve his goals, but he doesn't care about them as individuals. He's a master manipulator, and when the time comes, I believe Thrawn will leave Shin behind. She'll no longer be useful to him once his grand plan is in motion, and we see this happening throughout all of the Thrawn novels. Then there's Baylan Skoll. For all of Shin's loyalty to him, Baylan is not emotionally invested in her. He's more interested in his own journey, his own quest for a new order and power. Throughout the series, we see Baylan become more and more obsessed with this idea of destiny and greatness, to the point where he starts to distance himself from Shin Hati. In many ways, Baylan's abandonment of Shin is the most personal and devastating for her. She trusted him, followed him without question, but now she finds herself on her own. This moment of abandonment comes to a head when Baylan leaves Shin to deal with the aftermath of Ahsoka and Sabine finding Ezra Bridger. Baylan has moved on to his next mission, leaving Shin to fend for herself. She is no longer under his protection, no longer following his lead. This is a critical turning point in her story, as she must now confront the consequences of being left behind. And with Baylan Skoll knowing who Ahsoka Tano is and who her master was, it's even more heart-wrenching that he had left Shin Hati alone to fend for herself against this powerful Force user. And now that powerful Force user is teamed up with Ezra Bridger and Sabine Wren, leaving her feeling like she was set up for failure. At this point, Shin begins to question her purpose. If Baylan Skoll has moved on, and if Thrawn and Morgan don't care about her, what is she fighting for? Her sense of loyalty begins to unravel, and I believe this will lead her to switch sides, not because she suddenly sees the light, but because she has no other choice. Shin's isolation is key to understanding her potential defection. Left without guidance or a clear purpose, she becomes vulnerable. We've seen this happen with other characters in Star Wars. Those who abandon or are betrayed often find themselves drawn to new allegiances. For Shin, this could mean aligning with Ahsoka and Sabine, not out of a sense of camaraderie, but out of necessity, almost like the movie Enemy Mine. She's been left to fend for herself, and aligning with Ahsoka's group could offer her a path forward. But it's important to note that this wouldn't be a redemption arc in the traditional sense that we see in Star Wars. Shin is not a character seeking forgiveness or moral clarity. Instead, she's pragmatic. She will do whatever it takes to survive, and if that means switching sides, then so be it. One of the most crucial moments in this theory comes when Baylan Skoll decides to pursue his own quest, leaving Shin behind to deal with the aftermath of the heroes finding Ezra Bridger. This is the moment of true abandonment. For the first time, Shin is on her own. The relationship she relied on, the master she's followed, is no longer there to guide her. The look on Shin's face in this scene says everything. It's a mix of confusion, anger, and betrayal. She's been abandoned by the one person she thought she could trust, and now she's left to figure things out on her own. This is a pivotal moment for Shin Hati, as she's forced to reckon with her place in the galaxy and whether or not she still wants to follow Baylan's path. Let's now focus on the fascinating concept of dark force users who exist outside the bounds of Jedi and Sith. In Star Wars, we've been accustomed to the binary nature of the Force, the light side embodied by the Jedi and the dark side represented by the Sith. But characters like Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll are different. They're not Sith, yet they wield the dark side of the Force. They have power, but it's not rooted in the same philosophical dogma that defined the Jedi and the Sith. This opens up a whole new realm of possibilities in the Star Wars universe that we haven't seen in a long time. Dark Force users like Shin Hati challenge the idea that power must be tied to either the light or the dark side. They exist in gray area, where loyalty, survival, and ambition drive their actions more than ideology. Shin's character, in particular, exemplifies this beautifully. She's not driven by the lust for power that defines the Sith, but she's also far from the selfless protectors of the Jedi. To conclude, Shin Hati is one of the most complex and intriguing characters in the Ahsoka Tano series. Her journey is one of cold efficiency, fierce loyalty, and ultimately abandonment. As she questions her training, her role in the grand scheme of those she serves begins to unravel. Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth view her as a tool, and Baylan Skoll, despite his mentorship, is ultimately more concerned with his own quest for power and meaning than he is with her future. In the end, it's her isolation that will force Shin to reconsider her path. My theory, as we've discussed, is that Shin Hati will switch sides, not out of redemption, but out of necessity. She's not a character seeking salvation, but rather one trying to survive in a galaxy that no longer seems to have a place for her. Abandoned by her master and left behind by the very forces she once served, she'll find herself aligning with Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren, perhaps out of pragmatic need rather than shared ideology. Shin is a unique figure in the Star Wars universe, representing a new type of dark force user, one not bound by the rigid dogma of the Jedi or Sith. Her existence opens up new possibilities for how we understand the Force, showing that power can be wielded by those who choose their own path outside of traditional binary. As we continue to explore Shin's journey in Ahsoka Tano, we must keep an eye on her subtle transformations. Every scene with her and Baylan reveals more of her internal conflict, and as we watch her story unfold, it's clear that she is a character on the brink of a major shift. Whether she ultimately sides with the heroes or continues down a darker, more isolated path remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: Shin Hati is not a character to be underestimated. One final scene to examine in Shin's confrontation with Ahsoka and Sabine in the latter half of the series. By this point, Baylan has left her and she faces her enemies alone. In this scene, we see Shin fighting with the same ruthless efficiency, but her determination seems tempered with doubt. The same cold and calculated warrior we've seen in previous episodes is now more erratic, less focused. There's a moment where she hesitates, almost as if she's not entirely sure she should be fighting them anymore. The hesitation is critical. It symbolizes the crumbling of her own unwavering loyalty to Baylan Skoll and the mission. It also serves as a turning point in her relationship with the heroes. While she doesn't yet side with them, it's clear that the lines between enemy and ally begin to blur. An interesting dynamic in this scene is the tension between Shin and Sabine. Throughout the series, Sabine has been target for Shin, someone to capture, defeat, and neutralize. But in this final battle, there's almost a sense of mutual respect growing between them. They're both warriors, both trying to find their place in a galaxy where they don't entirely fit. Shin, once driven by her mission, now seems to see something in Sabine Wren, a potential ally, or perhaps even someone whose journey mirrors her own in so many ways. This moment foreshadows what could come next, a reluctant alliance, or at least a mutual understanding between these two characters. Shin's story isn't over, and her relationship with characters like Sabine Wren could evolve in fascinating ways. As we wrap up this analysis, it's clear that Shin Hati's journey is one of the most compelling stories in Ahsoka. Her cold, merciless exterior hides a character who is deeply conflicted about her place in the galaxy. With Baylan's abandonment and the possibility of being left behind by Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth, Shin finds herself at a crossroads. Ultimately, she walks away from the fight with Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra Bridger, but that doesn't mean she won't be back. Her future's uncertain, but one thing is clear. Shin is not a character bound by the traditional roles of light and dark. As a dark force user who operates outside the boundaries of Jedi and Sith, she represents a new kind of Star Wars character, one whose loyalty is fluid, whose motivations are complex, and whose journey could take her in unexpected directions. Will she switch sides? Will she carve her own path, free from the influence of Thrawn, Morgan Elsbeth, and Baylan Skoll? Or will she descend further into darkness, becoming a lone force in a galaxy full of shifting alliances? Only time will tell. For now, we'll continue to watch Shin Hati's story unfold as the Ahsoka Season 2 begins filming next year, eagerly anticipating the choices she'll make and the impact she'll have on the Star Wars universe. But what do you think about Shin Hati's journey so far? Do you believe she'll switch sides, or do you think she'll remain loyal to Baylan and the dark side, or just go off on her own and fade away into the distance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth Star Wars content. This is Gerald. Until the next time, signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, may the Force be with you, always.